You're listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis, the only podcast focused on the BioHealth Capital Region. Each episode, we'll talk to leaders in the industry to break down the biggest topics happening today in BioHealth.
Hi, this is Rich Bendis, your host for BioTalk. I'm broadcasting remotely from Kansas City today, just like most of you are all working remotely. And we're trying to interview leaders within the biohealth industry that are on the front lines of our COVID-19 pandemic that we have. And we're very happy today to have Sean Kirk, who is the Executive Vice President, Manufacturing and Technical Operations for Emergent BioSolutions, located in County, Maryland. Sean, welcome to BioTalk.
Great. Thanks, Rich. Glad to be here.
Well, great to have you. I know that you're really busy right now. Thank you for taking a little bit of your time so that we can update the listeners on some of the activities you're involved with that we're all watching on TV with Tony Fauci nationally. So before we start talking about actually COVID-19, let's talk a little bit about your background, Sean, and let's give the listeners a little bit of how you got to where you are as an exec VP with Emergent today.
Great. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, so I'm a long-timer of Emergent, actually. I began my career many years ago, undergraduate degree in microbiology and a master's in business from University of Georgia. Worked for Merck in their veterinary vaccine subsidiary, Marial, at the time for a few years, and had the good fortune to come to Emergent when it was its predecessor, which was Bioport, back in 2003. I'm coming up on my 17-year anniversary with the company. So been with the company a long time, seen a lot of growth, a lot of great diversification of our capabilities, and really a solidification of our role in partnership with the U.S. government when it comes to pandemic preparedness. In my current capacity, I have responsibility for oversight of our 8 manufacturing facilities, our global supply chain, global operational excellence, our contract development manufacturing business, as well as medical, clinical, and regulatory affairs.
And you mentioned your 8 manufacturing operations. I think those are extremely important in these times that we're having right now. Can you talk a little bit about these competencies and why you might have some unique relationships with the federal government for what you do?
Going back to our very core and our very first product, BioThrax, which is the only FDA-licensed anthrax vaccine manufactured at our plant in Lansing, Michigan. We've been a long-standing partner of the government when it comes to preparedness for many, many years. Through our growth strategy, we've acquired a variety of different unique capabilities and platforms as well as products to service not only that core mission of countermeasure preparedness on part of the U.S. government, but also a diversification strategy in the public health threat arena. I mean, our mission is to protect and enhance life, and the execution of that mission has brought a tremendous amount of talent and capability to the network. I mean, specifically, as you know, and I'm sure we'll get to, we're actively involved in the COVID pandemic response and are glad to bring those talents and capabilities to bear.
Well, thank you very much for what you do to help protect all of us. And we know that you're responding very quickly to what's going on with COVID-19. So let's talk a little bit about what your response has been and some of the activities you're involved in related to this pandemic.
Yeah, sure. As we've announced publicly, we've got a few different activities going on. We've announced on the contract development and manufacturing side 2 very key partnerships with Novavax and Vaxart for the advancement of their COVID-19 vaccines. Both different technologies, but both very viable horses in the race, if you will, to address this threat from a vaccination perspective. The core of the support for those 2 partner organizations actually lies here within our Maryland facilities. We have a product development facility in Gaithersburg, Maryland. We have a bulk manufacturing and development facility in Baltimore, Maryland, that is our Center for Innovation Advanced Development Manufacturing partnership facility with BARDA, our partner agency under Health and Human Services. And we also have a fill-finish facility in Baltimore, Maryland. So we're able to offer that entirety of the molecule-to-market partnership to these key partners in vaccine development. On the internal product side, as you know from reading our public disclosures and being in close contact with us, we are also leveraging our really important talent and capability at our Winnipeg, Manitoba facility in Canada to develop 2 different products. One is based upon our human plasma-derived therapeutic manufacturing platform, and the other is based upon our equine-derived manufacturing platform. So we have multiple internal shots on goal from a plasma-derived therapeutic perspective to purify antibodies from either convalescent patients who have navigated the illness and have antibodies against COVID-19 in their blood. That's on the human platform. Or horses, which is actually a platform we use for the development, manufacturing, and supply of our botulinum antitoxin therapeutic to the Strategic National Stockpile for defense under Health and Human Services. In that case, we can stimulate horses to generate a similar antibody response in large volume plasma supply and also purify those antibodies. So that gives us a nearer term high based upon those licensed platforms with significant safety databases already in place from other products that have been developed and commercialized on those platforms to advance this fight against COVID.
It sounds like you've got a parallel path or a multi-dimensional pathway that you're trying to explore, and the Novavax, which is right in our backyard in Gaithersburg, and Vaxart, I guess you're trying to look at your bets in multiple ways rather than putting all your money in one potential solution.
Yeah, I should highlight that those two organizations, I mean, they are great organizations. They have very capable platforms. And what we bring to bear is the product development, commercial scale-up capability, and the fill-finish capability, as well as other expertise we can bring to the partnership. It's merging great technology and great smaller companies with the established capability of Emergent to service this need. I will also say that we are in conversation with a variety of other organizations to potentially bring those capabilities to bear for their needs as well.
And then you have multiple facilities, as you've mentioned. Can you explain the difference in our BioHealth capital region of what you do in Gaithersburg versus what you do in Baltimore?
Yeah, so simply put, our Gaithersburg product development facility, which is part of that contract development manufacturing continuum, we have laboratories there for the early phase development of these manufacturing processes and associated analytics. If you then move along that continuum to our Baltimore Bayview, our CI-ADM facility, this is a flexible single-use bioreactor-based facility built in partnership with BARDA, as I mentioned before, that is really designed for agility, flexibility, and pandemic response. The basis of the CI-ADM partnership with BARDA is the building of a pandemic response capability, which we have undertaken since 2012. If we then advance the development through that phase, we have right down the street at our Camden fill finish facility, this aseptic fill finish capability needed to put these important vaccines and countermeasures into vials and deliver them ultimately to the patients.
Let's talk a little bit. You have a very unique relationship with the federal government. Can you talk about its evolution, how it's evolved to where it is today, and how it continues to build?
Yeah, as I touched on briefly before, I mean, it really goes back to that original partnership with the U.S. government around our BioThrax, our licensed anthrax vaccine manufactured in Lansing, Michigan. I mean, that was the only product that we had when we were BioBoard, and that was the original foundation of that partnership with the government. From there, and with the establishment of BARDA many years ago, with the enhancement and the focus on countermeasure development and preparedness on the part of the nation, we've been able to not only build that expertise internally to service those unmet needs on the product development and commercial manufacturing side for countermeasures, but also to acquire organizations that also operated in this space. The Winnipeg, Manitoba facility that I mentioned before is a perfect example. It was part of a facility formerly known as CanGene. We acquired that facility. We acquired important countermeasures for the stockpile, an anthrax immune globulin and a botulinum antitoxin as two examples. And then we've leveraged our expertise in government relations and product development to enhance the performance of that operation. We've also acquired from Sanofi a couple years back infrastructure for the manufacture of ACAM2000, which is a licensed smallpox vaccine, bulk manufacturing based up in Canton, Massachusetts. And we actually do the fill finish of that viral product in Rockville, Maryland. Just a couple examples, Rich.
Yeah, well, thank you very much, Sean. I'm talking with Sean Kirk, Executive Vice President, Manufacturing and Technical Operations with Emergent BioSolutions, getting an update on how they're dealing with COVID-19 or trying to support some solutions for the challenge we have in America. Talk about, you have, I think, 16 to 1,800 employees in all of your operations. Talk a little bit about how you're dealing with the human resource element of this and the people. Some of them are still involved in manufacturing. You're working remotely. We're talking remotely. Talk a little bit about what's going on throughout your organization and your many different operations.
Yeah, it's a really good question, and it is really the focus of the majority of the time that I'm spending as a member of the executive management team, and it's consuming the time of many of our key leaders across the organization. Let's just be really clear about one thing. Our people are absolutely key to our pandemic response capability. Facilities and infrastructure mean nothing without people. So what we have done, as you've highlighted, is we've gone to a teleworking policy for those of us who are more distantly removed from the core lifeblood operations of our product development and manufacturing facilities. We've done that in an effort to protect those employees essentially from potential exposure. We've also implemented a variety of different controls in place. We do have an established business continuity planning function that lies under the responsibility of our global head of protected services in my organization. We put many years worth of effort into preparing and planning for these types of things, and those plans are coming to bear right now. They are playing a significant role in how we handle this. We're in constant engagement with our employees, making sure that they're comfortable and that they recognize that we've taken additional steps to manage the potential for risk. And so far, so good. I mean, I cannot say enough about the level of commitment of all of our employees, those who are teleworking and adapting to challenges like me. I'm not really used to working from home, but more importantly, those folks who are coming in every day who recognize the critical role they play to ensure continuous flow of products and the continuous focus on development for COVID countermeasures.
Well, I know that I and probably all of our listeners appreciate everything and the sacrifices people are making right now to help try to address this pandemic that you mentioned. And what's happening with your workforce? Has this created an opportunity for you to hire more people, or you look more people in your operations today?
It has. We currently have about 80 to 90 openings across the Maryland locations. I'm going to focus here for a minute on Maryland because Maryland, as I mentioned before, the Gaithersburg and the two Baltimore facilities specifically are the area of our U.S.-based COVID response. The hyperimmune manufacturing and development manufacturing is occurring in Winnipeg. We have undertaken staffing acceleration to support the COVID response, and we're closely monitoring and hiring to those plans. As I mentioned before, I think we have about 90 open positions across multiple different manufacturing and corporate location here in Maryland and are expected to add to that number. So for those who may be listening, interested in opportunities at Emergent, please keep a close eye on our website in particular and reach out.
That's a great opportunity, Sean. But for those that are listening, what are the types of skills you're looking for? And have you been able to fulfill openings that you've had in your operations in Maryland from people locally versus having to bring people in from outside of the region?
If we start with the pre-COVID and the openings that we have, I mean, obviously we recruit heavily within the Maryland region, and it's a competitive marketplace for talent. I mean, let's just be clear here. But we feel like we're a fantastic organization. Obviously, I've been around for nearly 17 years, so that alone speaks to my commitment to the organization and to all the employees. So we welcome interest both locally and broadly. From a COVID perspective, as well as the open positions we had prior to the COVID pandemic, it's a diverse set of skill sets: project management, quality assurance, quality control, process and analytical development, manufacturing, as well as some corporate level SG&A positions. I mean, we have a variety of different opportunities driven first by our growth as an organization, which has been significant over the last several years, and then secondly and more recently by the COVID need.
And how has this impacted your ongoing day-to-day operations that you were trying to implement on your normal operating or strategic plan for the company, and then all of a sudden this pandemic hits and you have to shift? So how do you deal with ongoing operations for your core business versus having to do a lot of work in this new opportunity?
These are the conversations I've been working on night and day with both my leadership team within manufacturing and technical operations, as well as the executive management team. So we have made a conscious decision to down prioritize certain activities, but we are executing steadfastly against our strategic plan. We will adjust our organizational priorities as needed to ensure that the COVID response and the supply of our other key countermeasures, which are protecting the nation every day and have been for many, many years, continue to flow. So we're highly in touch with our employees. We're sensitive to the challenges of the time, and we're doing our very best as an executive team to adjust those priorities. But the simple way of saying it is our mission is to protect and enhance life. Everything our people do every single day has been for many years in service of this type of a threat. And it is the essence of who we are. We were built to do this, and we're happy to be playing a significant role. And we will adjust here and there tactically as needed in execution of our strategic plan to accommodate this near-term risk and threat.
Another thing, and I know you're more on the manufacturing than the finance side, but you're a public company. There's a lot of eyes looking at what you're doing from a shareholder standpoint as well as investment standpoint. So What has your response done to the financial markets around Emergent stock these days?
Obviously, our stock is beholden to the broader market volatility, just to be clear. So it's a little hard to discern the fluctuation in our stock that are associated with that broader market volatility versus movement in our stock that could be associated with the fact that our shareholders and our analysts know that we play an important role in this space. The ultimate benefits, if you will, around our market capitalization, they're ultimately going to be the result of our ability to demonstrate what we've built over the last 20 plus years to prove to our shareholders that we are the organization that is perceived to be, that has always asserted that we are the quote-unquote Lockheed Martin of biodefense, if you will, to use that comparator industry. This is an area that we have helped to build in partnership with the government. It's an area where I feel like we perform very well. It's an area where I feel like under the public health threat mission of the company, that the employees recognize, they value, and they will continue to execute to advance the business.
Well, thank you for that perspective. BioHealth Innovation has had a long-term relationship with Emergent because you were one of our founding members on our board and have been a strong supporter of BHI.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're proud to support for sure. It's been a great partnership and we look forward to many years ahead.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about the BioHealth Capital Region from your perspective. Emergent had its roots in Michigan, ended up with the corporate headquarters here in Maryland in Gaithersburg at this time. How has this region served you for the growth that you've really experienced? It's been very rapid. And what do you see as your prognostication for the future of staying focused here in this BioHealth Capital Region as the core of your operations?
Yeah. So even back to the days when the Lansing, Michigan was our only true manufacturing facility and BioThrax was our only product, our founder and CEO at the time, Fuadel, he was based here in Maryland. So we've always had a root here in Maryland. We also recognize that the Maryland, greater DC area is integral to our business. The Health and Human Services is here. Our BARDA partnership is in DC. Obviously, the FDA is here. And as you can see in our more recent announcements with respect to Novavax, for example, key partners are here as well. So we see this as a very rich area. We see it as critical to our success as an organization. And over the years, have expanded from just that small little office where Fuad resided back when we were a little company to having multiple manufacturing plants. Our corporate headquarters is in Gaithersburg, as you well know, and our roots have actually deepened in this area, so we're proud of that.
Yeah, so one of the things you mentioned is something that we try to promote as a differentiator for people outside of this region, and that having NIH, having BARDA, having HHS, having FDA, having CMS, if you have to price something, you basically have, from a pricing, regulatory, research, and a policy standpoint, all of these things in your backyard, which you can connect to within 30 minutes driving, which everybody else around the country is going to have to fly into this region. So I guess a lot of people downplay that, but I guess you're in the mainstream of this, and is that a significant advantage for you?
I think it absolutely is. And I do appreciate you mentioning NIH and NIAID, because those are two important organizations that I failed to comment on that have also been instrumental to the advancement of our product development capability in relationship with the government as potential countermeasures move from NIAID through potentially BARDA and ultimately to the Strategic National Stockpile. And I'm speaking specifically, obviously, about our medical countermeasure portfolio for biodefense. We have a broader portfolio that's also very relevant to this region. I'm not sure if listeners would know, but we actually own Narcan, the opioid antidote product, and being able to access the federal government to help discuss policy around opioid abuse and addressing that horrible, horrible issue in society is important. And I'm just giving you one more incremental example of broad touch points and relationships we have in the greater DC and Maryland area.
And I'm glad you mentioned, when you look at anthrax and opioids and coronavirus, man, talk about areas that it could have a negative impact and are having a negative impact in America and around the world. And I guess we're very lucky to have someone who is committed and dedicated to coming up with solutions to treat with vaccines, therapeutics, or diagnostics, someone like Emergent in our backyard.
Yeah, it's really great. And we've had the good fortune, I cannot overstate it, we've had the good fortune of acquiring some very important products like Narcan, like some of the ones I mentioned before, and the tremendous talent that's come along through those acquisitions. So I'd be remiss if I was implying that we developed all these from scratch, because much of this great capability and the talent actually began elsewhere. And we were extremely pleased to be able to fold it into our organization to enhance our overall capabilities as a company and to bring that talent to bear. It's been a tremendous journey.
So we know all things will pass, and this pandemic's going to pass at some point. So when you get back to normal operations, let's talk a little bit about the future of Emergent post-pandemic and sort of some of your growth plans for the future.
This is a really challenging time that we're in. Really unfortunate that things have unfolded the way they have. But in our minds, it really solidifies the need for organizations like ours. Not just us, because there are other businesses similar to us out there that can play or that are playing a key role in this specific pandemic. And in my mind, it's very likely that there'll be recurrence of something in the future similar to this. And the nation's preparedness depends upon organizations like ours, employees like ours, from now into perpetuity.
I think potentially everyone is going to think more about future crises having gone through this, so we would better prepare in the future. And organizations like Emergent can help in that strategic planning for our federal government and those organizations that are going to be on the front line.
Absolutely.
Sean Kirk here, Executive Vice President, Manufacturing and Technical Operations for Emergent BioSolutions on BioTalk. And I'm going to give you a last word, Sean, to help close this brief interview. Any words you have for our listeners that you'd like to convey to them?
I guess if I was to get a message out, it's a couple different things. These are certainly challenging times. But speaking on the behalf of Emergent, we have a tremendous set of employees that are working hard every day to address these threats. I was on a conference call with various industry leaders just the other day in the greater Maryland area. Tons of talent out there, tons of capability. Emergent's willing to explore partnerships and other opportunities to fight this fight as best we can, as quickly as we can. So I encourage companies that may be listening, if you feel like there's a potential synergy there, not to hesitate to reach out. Just please, let's do this together. I mean, we're going to beat it, and we're going to beat it as quickly as reasonably possible.
That's a great message to close on, Sean, because I think what we're trying to encourage is a lot of the resources in this region and the assets that exist aren't aware of each other and had the opportunity to work with one another. So maybe this will help bring things within this region together to a greater degree post-pandemic, and we will be stronger as we go forward after that. So we're proud to have Emergent as one of the anchor companies in the BioHealth Capital Region. Thank you for your leadership in what you're doing, and we wish you the best. After the curve flattens, as everybody says, we'll come back and talk to you about all of the accomplishments and how we've helped address this from an Emergent perspective.
Great, Rich. So please, everybody out there, stay safe, stay healthy, stay committed.
Thank you. And for all of the listeners, we apologize a little bit on the quality of this BioTalk. We're doing this remotely in a different fashion than when we do this in studio. I know it will be edited and we'll have the clearest capability for you and you're listening, but we are trying to improve our communications for the future. But bear with us as we do pilot programs on these podcasts. So thank you very much for listening. And Sean, good luck in the future.
Thanks, Rich.
Thanks for listening to BioTalk with Rich Bendis.